Hello,
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. Thank you very much.
Good. Busy then, I take it, yeah?
Oh, it's like holidays, coming back from holidays, just like too much to catch up on, even though I actually was doing some work from there as well. But
You were in Egypt, weren't you?
yeah.
Oh, wow. How was it?
It was different.
Oh, okay.
No, I think like my partner and I, we have completely different expectations from holidays. Like I
Right.
like to go on places where there are adventures, where you can explore things. I don't care if it's like clean or if it's dirty. Literally, like for me, it's
Mm,
about like emotions. He
yeah.
prefers to be at the beach,
Right.
just relax and enjoy life. And I kind of can do this as well, but
Yeah.
if it's too much for me, it just gets boring.
Yeah.
So I had a
Yeah. Yeah.
combination. We spent a few days in Cairo, which was amazing because of all this ancient Egyptian history. And then we went to Sharm el Sheikh, and we had this in this like all-inclusive resort, which
Mm,
was fun for me for one day.
mm,
But then it's kind of like, again, all artificial. It's not what Egypt is,
yeah.
and the abundance of food, which is a challenge when you're trying to lose weight. And it's
Yeah. 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 All inclusive. It's really all inclusive, isn't it? It's crazy. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm the same as you. I get a bit itchy on those things. I'm like, we did that for our honeymoon. We went, 5-star all inclusive in Mexico, beautiful. But like by day 2, I was just like, can we do something like. And my wife was just shouting at me the whole time, like, just sit down, relax. I'm like, what are we gonna do? Like, I just can't sit here all day. So yeah, I just ended up drinking and eating.
so that's pretty much like what also like I mean, you can probably relate with our skin color.
Yeah,
Like being under the sun all the time, it's not the best option. And I
yeah,
think
yeah.
I passed the age where I had ideas or dreams of actually getting tanned.
Right.
Now I know that I just get red, then it peels off, and it's also risk of cancer. So that's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
like these days I'm just staying in the shade. And obviously when you are
Mm.
there, the whole idea is, I don't know, like go for a swim and join. But when it's like plus 35,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just was kind of like, I don't care. But it was still, like it was fun. It was quite relaxing. I think
That's
it
good.
was relaxing enough for me to actually wanting to come back home.
Oh, okay. But did you manage to switch off a little bit as well?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. Oh, that's
Especially
good.
like when we were in Cairo, I had one of my friends from Dubai joined us for a few days,
Oh, lovely.
and that's actually didn't do any work, and she had every single then planned for us,
Mm.
and it was fun. It was
Oh,
fun.
that's nice. Yeah, very
But
nice.
I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, welcome back. Well, look, thank you so much for joining me. As you probably can tell, we already started recording because when you
Yeah.
came in the room, you probably. So that's the kind of style of this. It's a bit more chill. It's a bit more laid back. So yeah, there's not really a huge amount of structure to these things. If you've watched any of them, then you'll know we just talk about absolutely anything and everything. But there is a little bit of structure at the beginning and the end. I think it's good. Obviously, we've just started talking, but it's good for anyone watching, for you, I think, to introduce yourself and then maybe your background and your business, just to get us going, and then we can carry on talking about whatever we want to talk about. But so yeah, why don't you take it away, introduce yourself and your business.
Okay, so my name is Vasily, and I'm the founder of the company called Foogin. And Foogin is a B2B marketplace for wellness-related classes and webinars. And pretty much what our goal is to just change how corporate environment is treating people, and what corporate wellness actually means for individuals within the companies and for companies themselves. So that's pretty much is my baby. That's what I'm living and breathing these days. And you and I met at something that is kind of like related to my business, but at the same time is a little bit separate. It's networking events. So I started running networking events for founders and investors literally just a few months ago. And the main goal for this was simply for me to get in front of investors, and it was an experiment. I didn't expect any of this to work, but somehow starting from the first event is just exploded, and now I had 3 events, and it will be another one in beginning of June.
So only 3, really?
Yeah,
it's just, I mean, for the turnout of the last one, you would have thought it'd been going for years, you know.
Oh, yeah, I would. I don't know if I would be able to sustain this for years, because even though it's like, it didn't really take much for me to organize this, as with, like, you know, like evolution and things just getting more and more complicated, which I guess, you know, like, is like normal in life.
Yeah.
I was trying to experiment from like event number 1, and somehow every single time it would get more and more and more complex. And obviously with all this, you know, like complexity, the requirement of time that is, you know, like actually, you know, like how much amount of time it takes for me to put things together and do the things I started doing, it's getting more and more kind of like, you know, like serious and time consuming. But so far it's fun. And I'm definitely enjoying this. I met quite a few amazing people in there. Like, I'm currently raising investment for my startup, and so far most of the investor meetings I had actually happened because of this event. So definitely was the right strategy to do this, and where it takes me in the future, I don't know, but so far I'm just loving it. I'm enjoying the feedback from people, that people make connections. I managed to introduce quite a few investors to founders, and founders to investors, and got some feedback that they had, you know, like great discussions. And so it's kind of like amazing to feel, you know, like this feedback, you know, like to actually get it, and knowing that what I'm doing is not just my imagination, and it's actually like adds value to people.
Yeah, and it was, but I can totally see what you mean, how it can become time consuming, and you know, the worry, I guess, is then it might take you away from your main goals. With Foogin, right? But it was really impressive. Yeah, like you said, that's where we met in person for the first time, wasn't it? Last month, and it was brilliant. I helped out a little bit, and it's just, I think it's just nice to see founders sort of banding together to support each other, share experiences, because it can be quite a lonely venture, you know.
Definitely,
yeah. I mean, even if you have co-founders, you know, you're kind of stuck in a bit of an echo chamber, you know, staring at each other or a screen, and it's just nice to have, you know, even if it's just a bit of a reality check from other people to say, no, that won't work, or yes, it will. Just feeling a bit of camaraderie, you know, I think it's important, isn't it?
I honestly think that's what you said in the beginning, like in terms of like, you know, like it's a lonely place. It is actually a lonely place. And I don't think anyone who never experienced this would actually get this kind of like, on like a level of loneliness. But in my personal experience, I worked in the corporate environment for pretty much forever, until I decided to jump the ship and concentrate on my own business, and try to actually, you know, like do something. Obviously, because of my experience with the corporate environment, pretty much 99% of my friends, or like people I speak to, you know, like they also work in the corporate environment. So that's why we had a lot in common. But when you are running your own business, you just go through completely, you know, like different experience. And
100%.
Unfortunately, you kind of losing touch with your friends because of this, simply because, let's say, for me, that's what I do every single day. I have a lot of things happening that I can talk to about people, like, you know, like who are going through the same experience. But if I start talking about these things with someone who is, you know, like going to like a normal job, for them it's just simply boring. The same way for me, I don't care about all this, you know, like politics at work, whatever the drama that they have, you know, like going on, simply because right now I know, like, it's not part of my universe. And that's why slowly just get to the point where you kind of like you like, you know, like wasting each other's time with the stories, just because you know that whatever you're talking about is completely relevant for the other person. Then you start filtering what you know, like what concerns you, and it's just kind of like, it's not fun. And again, it's not, obviously, like, it doesn't take away the friendship, because I guess, like, in like, if you have a friendship,
if it's a real friendship, then
yeah, it is based on a lot of, you know, like, other things. But for example, I cannot talk to my friends about things that actually do concern me, you know, like these days. And that's why, you know, like, it is some kind of like, you know, like, isolating experience. Like, for example, my partner, I think right now he pretends that he cares. I mean, like, he cares because obviously, like, you know, like, he's supporting me on this, and once this works out, he will benefit, you know, like, from this as well.
Yeah.
But in reality, I know that most of the things that I talk about, for example, I know, like, I went to this networking event, I met with the founder who is working on this bloody amazing idea, and I come back home and I share, overshare, because I'm excited. And for him, it's like now he does a very good job with just like listening.
Yeah.
And then in a couple of days, you would like bring up some conversation that you had a few days ago, and you would understand the person actually like didn't pay attention. And again, like, in the beginning, it's quite frustrating, but you kind of, you know, like, you just get it. You just get it, and it's absolutely fine. And that's why, for me, I found myself, you know, like, lonely in this sense that I just didn't have anyone to just, I don't know, like, talk shit about in terms of, you know, like, what I'm experiencing. And that's one of the reasons why I decided to go to this networking events, not to find investors, but to actually talk to people who can relate. And of course, you can talk about so many things with people who go through the same, you know, like, journey. And now, luckily for me, I met quite a few people. I have quite a few friends who are kind of like, you know, like in the same, you know, like, startup environment. And now I have a balance of, you know, like, my friends who I can filter things that I talk about, and you know, like, people from the startup ecosystem.
Yeah, so you've got support from both ends, because you don't want to talk about work all the time, right? You know, you want people, because if that's the only problem with founders, if you sit a bunch of founders in a room, all they're going to talk about is what it's like to be a founder. Like, so at some point you might want to just go, do you know what? Actually, I don't want to do that. I want to break. But I always compare it to like being a parent. Like, you know, if you don't have kids and you meet a parent, all they want to talk about is being a parent. And if you're a parent and you meet people that aren't, all they want to talk about is what it's like being single and not having kids. And it's just like, okay, this doesn't work anymore. You know, we've outgrown each other. We can't share the same experiences as much, you know, and it happens. You lose touch with these people until, you know, they then experience the same thing, and then you start talking about it again. But I think, you know, what it comes down to as well is that founders, generally speaking, I think the most founders I know, myself included, we're massive nerds. Like, we're huge nerds. Like, we love nerding out about everything there is to do with startups, startup world, the startup culture, the ecosystem, frameworks, you know, certain elements of economics. And of course, you know, if you have like technical founders, you know, then they're into the product side of things. Like, you need to be able to have groups of people you can sit down and like share these things with, right? And it's different for every stage too. Like, you know, every stage of the founder journey. So then it's like, oh, you're in that stage as well. Me too. Are you having these problems too? You know, and then it all sort of happens like that, doesn't it? So, yeah, it's interesting. It's a lot of the people I speak with in my line of work as an advisor and investor is really helping people mostly through that main problem of just feeling they're alone, and just saying, you're not. Don't worry. Like, it's been done before, and you'll be fine. Like, go to these events. But I'm so glad I went. It's the first one I've been to in a very, very long time. So thank you for having me. Do you know when the next one's going to be yet? Have you come up with a date yet?
6th of June.
Oh, cool. Excellent. Yeah, what, same venue or different?
Yes, like, you know, like the same venue. This time, I'm trying to do something different again.
Of course.
So I actually want to bring investors who will be pitching to founders.
Yes, I remember you mentioning about this idea. Yeah, I love this idea.
So I was supposed to partner up with another company who already do this, just because we have the same audience and like a little bit different concept. Their part of the event starts in the afternoon, and
Right.
my part in the evening, but we just couldn't find the right venue, because initially we had plans to use the venue that you saw, but they have specific requirements for lighting in terms of filming, and
Right.
that's why it just didn't work for them. And we decided to kind of like delay this maybe to, I don't know, like July, if we manage to find a venue that will work. But I kind of had a few investors asking me these questions previously. And I was like, you know what, I can still do this, even though we don't do this together. And I have now 4 investors confirmed who want to pitch, and I'm hoping to get at least 10, ideally like 20. I mean, like, if I don't get enough, it's not a problem, because obviously we have founders who are like, like eager to pitch it, at least, even if it's for practice.
Of
So
course,
that's why if you want to join, like, and pitch as an investor, as an angel investor, in terms of, I don't know, like what you're looking for, your requirements, that would be great. Then you will be my number 5.
Yeah, absolutely. So you got 4 already. That's good. Yeah, we'll talk about that. And also, I may know a few others as well. I'll put the word out there. But and hopefully, when this goes on air, I don't know if this will be out actually before then. Yeah, it should. Yeah, it should be. Then hopefully that gets the word out there. But to shout out another founder that I work with, if you're looking for a venue, he runs a platform to find venues for that kind of thing. So I can share that with you.
What's his name? Because maybe I already spoke to him.
Gabriel.
Let me check.
Yeah, he runs the platform Tutti. I think Vish knows him. And so it's a good platform for finding spaces for things like corporate events and creative, like music and all kinds of things like that. So check that out. But
I will check, because I actually did speak to someone at the event. That's why I thought maybe you were talking about the same.
Oh, okay. No, he wasn't there. That he was away then.
No,
but,
maybe someone else. Yeah.
But it's a good platform to use. Like, literally just go on there and search and you can be very specific with your requirements as well, and it will give you. So a lot of the spaces on there are for filming, and things like that. So it can be useful. But yeah, that's a really interesting idea, though. I like the idea of putting the investors under the spotlight there. But I also really like that at the event as well, that there was a lot of support for the founders that were going up and pitching. A lot of them for the first time. And I don't know if it was you or someone else I overheard say to them, hey, I think it was you, and you were saying, like, it's okay. You just need to keep doing it. Like, just keep practice. And I think that's a really underrated bit of advice when it comes to pitching anything, let alone to founders, is you're not going to be very good at it to start off with.
Oh, definitely. It's interesting that this founder, the one that you're talking about, he then posted on LinkedIn a couple of days after the event how he fucked everything up.
Yeah.
And I met him a few times previously, and I mean, it's kind of like, again, it sucks when we have such a high expectation from ourselves. And reality is, I mean, that's why I see this kind of events as practice rather than a way to get an investor. Because when you go to any of these pitching events, unless they are very specific in terms of the industry, then you have a chance, maybe. But if you're going to something generic, the chances are you're not gonna get any investors from there. But
so just use it as experience and
exactly
practice.
Just as a practice. First, you never know who's in the room, you never know who can introduce you to whoever. And that's why I myself got quite frustrated with quite a few events happening in London where you can pitch and you have to pay for it. And they claim they have investors in the room, and then you talk to people in the room and there is literally 0 investors. And now doing this myself, I understand that it's kind of like, I mean, it's normal that you have more founders than investors, kind of like, it's absolutely fine. But I personally think it's unfair to make founders pay for this. And especially kind of like at the early stage when a lot of founders simply bloody broke.
Oh yeah. No, I agree. I mean, unless you're giving something in return for that, if it's not for investors to be present, then at the very least some very well structured feedback, some sort of workshop, something to improve the pitch or the deck or something. But if you're just literally getting people up on stage and taking their money, then yeah, that's pretty.
I paid. This event was, I think I paid £250 for like 3 minutes. And
that's not cheap.
Oh, it wasn't. And I remember I was asking people in terms of the feedback, and not many people tried to pitch there before, so no one could really tell me anything. But then one of my friends, she went there before, and she just literally tell me that just see this as a practice. And back then I thought it was normal to pay for practice £250. And when I had this idea to create my own events, initial idea was to give opportunity to founders to pitch, because come on, £250 to for a few minutes. Literally, I mean, it's just nonsense. But I mean, it's business, and I kind of I get it. And obviously, if people are paying for this, it means that they are.
But it's wrong, isn't it? I mean, it's broken. But yeah, I mean, people like you and others are changing that, which is good. But you're right. I mean, it's 250 quid to practice something. I mean, Jesus Christ, you could do that with your friends and family. You know what I mean? Like, why spend £250? So especially, like you said, if you're not getting actually any constructive feedback or practical steps to improve, if it's just go up, fail, leave, and you probably feel pretty shit afterwards as well.
Oh, exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's just, 250 quid for 3 minutes. I mean, the brothels do better than that. They make you feel better for £250. 60 minutes, I think. I don't know. I've never been to it. Anyway, let's change subject. By the way, who's that in the background?
Oh, it's one of my dogs.
Oh, one. Okay.
I have to.
Oh, beautiful. What? Here's her name.
So this one is Maggie.
Right.
They're both Shiba Inus.
Right.
It's like a Japanese breed, and I have another one somewhere, white one. His name's Chucky.
Yeah. So like the cryptocurrency.
Yeah. That's how people know this.
That's how people know him. Yeah. Well, I've got a German Shepherd somewhere. I have no idea where he is. He's massive, and I've lost him. But, yeah, it's funny. I never used to be a dog person. I also used to be a cat person. I got converted over the years. They're beautiful animals. So he went to the vets yesterday. He had to get put to sleep to have some tests done on his ears. So all day yesterday, when he come back, he was just like
oh yeah, I know it.
Like, what's going on? And I would look at him, and he'd just be standing in the garden, just staring at his bone. Like that for ages. He's just out of it. Bless him.
The same with me. I was actually against any animals.
Oh, really?
Simply because when I was growing up, I had literally everything from parrots, turtles, snakes, lizards.
Oh, wow.
Dogs. I think my parents were quite open-minded with this, so that's why I know quite a bit of experience. I know how much responsibility it is to actually have an animal. So that's why when my partner initially came up with an idea, I want to have a dog. And I was like, no, because I knew that it would eventually be my responsibility. So we got the first one, this one. I obviously fell in love with her from bloody day one. And of course it became our responsibility. A year later, we got the second one. And now I have just two dogs, considering that I was actually against them.
That's funny, isn't it? Yeah, and that's the thing. I'm considering us getting another as well. It's just ridiculous.
Don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you considering getting any more?
Oh no. I mean, since we have two now, I would if we had a house, I think I would definitely get another one. If you have a house, if you have a space.
Yeah.
But in London, it's a little bit obviously complicated in terms of going somewhere. And now I also realize that I think as with children, you can get lucky or you can get unlucky. So this one, she's just a perfection in terms of her behavior, everything else. But the boy that we got, oh my god, literally, we decided to call him Chucky after this this character in this horror movies.
Well, the doll, yeah.
So he definitely lived up to this name.
Was he going around in the middle of the night with
I was no, it's everything. So on his first birthday, we had Warren from the police. because he was going through puberty, and boys are, like getting aggressive, and he had a fight with this dog, and the dog was fine, but unfortunately, the owner decided to separate two fighting dogs with her bare hands, and she got bitten.
Yeah,
it wasn't much, but she reported us to police. It was bloody, super stressful experience.
I mean, my God, you should know what to expect. If you're going to put your hands between two fighting
you
dogs.
see, that's what I was thinking, especially as a dog owner.
Yeah, you should never do that. Everyone
exactly,
knows.
but I mean, like, it is what it is. Literally, on his birthday, we had police knocking, like 4 police officers, and they were looking at him because he's like small, super friendly, and this one was barking at them, and so they thought that she was aggressive one.
Right.
The one who actually did create all the drama, he was like also fluffy and nice.
He knew he was manipulating the situation. Me, nothing. I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Oh, but it was, I think, like, obviously, like, now it is what it is, and like, I'm quite happy. Wouldn't change it for a word, but if I knew everything that we had to go through, I probably would have said no properly right from the beginning.
Yeah, it's the funny thing, isn't it? It's like ignorance is bliss. Like I spoke about this with someone else on this show not too long ago about, like, if you knew everything that was involved in running a business or like being a parent and like all these other major decisions, would you do it? And the answer was like, no, absolutely not. And like that's some part of like why it's good to do these things going in blind. Is while it's great to have people say, hey, you have you planned for this? Have you done that? Have you done this? Sometimes that just scares people away from doing things. It's better to just be like, just go for it and see what happens. Come to me when you've fucked up.
Like 100% agree, because even with my journey so far as a founder, like, I love it. Like, I honestly, like since I left my full-time job, I feel like I'm just living my life. Like, seriously, like every single day, I'm just bloody happy to do what I do. And of course, it gets very stressful, and you do run always closely, like on the edge of burnout. But in terms of experience, bloody, like, so rewarding. But if I knew all of this, I mean, there is a chance that I would be like, no.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that's why I think there's both it's really great that we are in a situation in the startup ecosystem where there's so much information available to help entrepreneurs and budding founders get started, but at the same time it can be very overwhelming.
It's too much. Exactly. No, because also, like, like, you don't know what information is reliable, what's not. And also another thing to remember, that people do talk about their personal experience. Personal experience is personal experience. Obviously, like, it's only related to this specific individual, and just because something happened to them, it doesn't mean that you would be going like through the same. Same, for example, when it comes to like solving specific problems or like go-to-market strategies, whatever. Things do work differently for different people, and that's why I think if you don't really, like, understand that you need to look at everything from this perspective, you can be like literally like limited with a lot of things. I was reading the book recently, and this book was describing this experiment with fleas. So pretty much, if you take a jar, you put fleas inside, fleas like jump very high, and you cover this jar with a glass ceiling. Very quickly, fleas will adjust the height that they jump, so they don't hit the ceiling. But then if you remove this ceiling, they will just keep jumping without getting out of the jar. And I think this is kind of like representation of experiences, especially bad experiences. Like, something would happen, and then you wouldn't try this again because you have this, like, illusion that like it would never work. And I think
you become risk averse.
Exactly. And that's why also like relying on a lot of information out there, especially like like negative information, it can just like simply limit you in terms of like opportunities. Just to give you an example specifically about the event, when I had this initial idea, I actually started this before the whole networking event for founders investors. I started my fundraising in kind of like in like February. And I spent the entire January building target list of investors and like for myself. And idea was to get all these investors to the event where I will be presenting myself. And kind of like do a pitching event, but specifically, about myself. And I had a few speakers from the industry, kind of like, big names to kind of like set up the scene and talk about the problem that I'm solving. And that was my first experiment. I didn't get as many people involved with networking events. Like we had, 500 people registered. I had 50. It was like pretty good event, but I had zero money. And when I had this idea, literally every single person I spoke to told me that you just need to give up. There is no chance you will be able to find venue in the center which would let you to use them for free. And I was like, you know what? Fuck this. I literally went to Green Park. I spent about 5 hours walking around looking for the venue that I thought would benefit from me bringing people to them. And the one that I settled on was John Juice by Green Park. And I don't know if you've been there before. They have pretty cool lower ground kind of like startup theme. And in the evenings during the week, they're empty because they're only relying on people who actually work there. And they let me to use it for free because obviously like they were getting sales and like coffee and whatnot. And that again gave me an idea in terms of how else I can do, like when I started thinking about these events, like I spent zero money on this. And not only that I didn't pay for the venue, I got sponsorship. I had all the support from volunteers like yourself, who literally just came to help out. And every single time I do these events, I have more and more people eager to join to help. And it's amazing because again, I didn't even think about this, and before everyone was telling me it was bloody impossible.
Yeah, there's a fine line, isn't there, between confidence and insanity. I think like there has to be a certain thing in you that just goes like you said, like fuck 'em, I'll do this. No, I remember that reminded me of something years and years ago when I used to work in pubs and stuff back in the day, and I remember years and years ago, my manager at this pub, I had this idea of like let's do a Christmas raffle for obviously Christmas time. We'll get like all the local businesses involved. We'll get them to donate something of theirs, and it'll be this big thing, and people pay for it, because the business was kind of struggling a bit at the time. So this was way before I'd even started consulting in that sector. This was like one of the things that started me off in a way. And it was like, there's no point. It's a waste of time. No one's going to give you anything. Everyone wants something. You'll have to pay for it. This and that. I ended up going around to local businesses and securing easily around £2,000 worth of stuff, free stuff. Like I was given a free guitar, electric guitar, by a music shop worth £250. Like they were just like, yeah, have it. I'm like, it just confidence and just asking, right? Just having the balls to go out there and be like, hey, do you want to do this thing? And maybe some level of skill in terms of communication. I mean, I think that helps. You can't go and just sort of sound like a bumbling idiot. But at the same time, like, I think just the first step is just actually believing that you can do the thing, right? That's the first step,
Exactly. Just like not being afraid of getting a no and being embarrassed.
Right. And that's the key, is not being afraid to just hear a no. Yeah. Because you will hear lots and lots of no's.
Oh, yeah. And to be honest, like even just thinking about this, myself personally, even though I think I did so many things in my life, I got so many things in my life just doing things differently. And you kind of think that maybe I will be immune to feeling bad about like I don't know, like hearing no, and from like like literally like stopping myself from doing something. But reality is, like I had to deal with this like all the bloody time. Like for example, last year when we had to pivot from B2C to B2B, one of the things that I was definitely pushing away from myself was doing the proper market research. And like normally, like according to Y Combinator, you build the product when you have the problem and when you have like verification of this problem, like doing the market research.
In the ideal world, yeah.
In the ideal world, exactly.
Yeah.
And kind of like, again, makes sense. Not always, but kind of like makes sense. And I was honestly, like I was afraid. I was afraid that I will start talking to companies that don't know me, and they will just tell me that like no one gives a shit. And eventually I run out of options, and I actually started doing this, and I was like, and I got like very positive feedback, and I was like, fuck, like I should have done this like much earlier.
Yeah.
And the same right now, like we have MVP ready, and a few investors I spoke to was like they asked me the question, like why didn't you like test this? Why didn't you do like any pilots? And there is one excuse that I was using is kind of like like it's like complexity of a solution that I built, not the complexity in terms of technology, but what we have is connected to like real life people. We have like real life like wellness professionals, and when it comes to B2B, there is expectation of customer service. So in order for me to launch this in terms of testing, I need to have like other people on board to actually like to help me out on this.
Yeah,
like
to deliver it kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like technology is there, website is there, instructors are there, but everything else apart from myself, there is like nothing. And for a while, I think I was just like using this as an excuse, but I think I had to hear this feedback enough times to actually understand that I actually like need to do something. And I was talking to one investor in Barcelona a couple of weeks ago, and they do invest at pre-seed. And I was introduced to him by a mutual friend, and we went for a walk. And he was like, I'm going to be honest with you that I look at what you guys have, and considering the environment right now, there is no chance we will even consider you without like seeing attraction. And he was like, you can tell me whatever you want in terms of it's like like a B2B, blah blah blah, and this and this. And we spoke to a company with a similar concept, but kind of like on the coaching side in the US, and they managed to get like Facebook or whatever, like for pilot. And he was like, of course, like things like it's not easy, but
it can be done.
It can be done. And he was like, you need to figure out the way how you can test this. It's not going to be whatever you're building. And like it might cost you, like some money, but you need to show something to investors to actually prove at least a little bit. If it was like a few years ago, maybe you would be able to get investment, like without like proving this. But right now the market is a bit different, and you need to position yourself right. And I obviously like wasn't happy with this feedback. I left this conversation. I was like, fuck you. I will get the money, like without this, blah, blah, blah. But on the way back, when I was on the plane, I kind of like kept thinking about this, because I was like, fuck, like how do you actually do this? And I realized that there is a way. And the only reason why I think I actually didn't do this earlier, that in theory, like I was afraid that if we actually launch this not in the way that it is intended to be, that I would get a no, and people would say that what you're working on has like zero value. But
or you're not launching a version of it that you would imagined you would. It's like a lesser version of it, and your vision is this thing, and suddenly you're being forced to launch this thing. And I get that happens all the time, doesn't it? I mean, when we speak to founders, a large part, to plug a little bit of what I do as a commercial advisor, that a lot of what I do is tempering expectations, really. you know, and it's and with those early stages especially, you know, they're talking about, oh, we want to do this, we want to do, you know, we want to you know, sell to these people and these people. Okay, great, you're not going for a long time. So bring back the expectations and you know, start small, start here. It doesn't have to be like not tiny, but you know, just bring them back to you know, realistic place. So it's great to see that you came to that realization yourself with a bit of like it's hard, bitter pill to swallow, but it's good. Yeah.
This kind of, I think, like for me, one of my internal motivators was the fact that I realized that I was actually afraid of it.
Right.
That's why, you know, it was like, again, the same with like my previous experience. I was like, you know what, fuck that. I'm not gonna let my fear to stop me from, you know, like where I need to be. And 2 hours on the plane, or however long it was, I know, like I did come up with a plan how I can launch this, how I can do this in the way that I can manage this myself, but get something meaningful as a result, you know, like to prove that what we're working on has, you know, like this you know, like metrics that we, you know, like we're talking about. So I'm talking to a few companies this week, and one investor I spoke to yesterday already introduced me to one company who is happy to actually do this pilot with me and pay for it. And it literally was, and again, going back to events, it's all happened from this event. I met someone there, and things just happen. And but it's just funny because I think, like in life, we all go through this, that the fear itself is much bigger than the reality, and it's just like, you know, like stops us from doing things that can potentially, you know, like lead to some success.
Yeah. Well, it stops you from even starting in the first place, right? But yeah, it's funny you mentioned that you sort of came to this realization on a plane as well, because of that. I think that for me highlights the importance as well of, like you said, as a founder, it's 100 miles an hour. It's, you know, being this close to burnout all the time, and a lot of founders don't take the opportunity to decompress. And some of the best ideas for work happen when you're not working. Right, some of the best moments of clarity actually happen when you step away and you decompress a little bit and you unplug a little bit, and yeah, that's when I find some of the best time, you know, ideas come to my head, or the problem that I've been trying to solve for the longest time that I'm unable to find a solution for suddenly comes to me. But I think you need to distance yourself from it, you know, which again, like, not to keep bringing it back to me, but again, is why it is, I think, good as well for people like me to be sometimes involved, because there's, you know, an extra pair of eyes, someone who's not emotionally as invested in the situation, or going to these kinds of events, speaking to people, getting their opinions, and really just getting a second opinion or a third opinion on things, I think is really important, you know. But you were saying about this pilot then. So what does the pilot entail? Because if, you know, there might potentially be businesses listening. So it could be, you know, is it open to any business, or are there specific criteria, and what does it involve?
Like I was obviously like thinking about the pilots in the sense of what I can manage myself without, you know, like hiring people,
right? And
without, you know, like any investment, something that I can, again, just like that I can do myself. And I think I can manage a team of people of, I don't know, like in terms of the users, like 20 to 30 users from one company. And so we can launch this for 1 month in terms of anything, in terms of the content that we have on the platform, just to give you an idea. So our idea in terms of the business, kind of like, you know, like, and what we're trying to solve. Corporate wellness, it's like a huge problem, you know, like especially post-COVID. I mean, to be honest, like, you know, like it did exist before, but I think companies only started taking this seriously or talking about this after, you know, like we got back from COVID with, like there are like very horrible statistics published by Deloitte last year. 7 out of 10 employees experience signs of burnout. 2 out of 10 employees leave to reasons related to poor mental health. And in the UK only, the poor management of employee health costs UK employers up to £56 billion per year. So it's like, I think it's like 1.2 or 1.3% of GDP. It's like, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
And companies are aware and post-COVID, quite a few companies started offering wellness benefits as part as, I don't know, like normal expected things like, you know, like health insurance, dental insurance. And companies in the UK spent anywhere between £150 to £1,200 per employee per year when it comes to you know, like wellness benefits. So it's quite a bit of money. Obviously, like huge market, you know, like the problem is there. Not surprising that there are so many solutions on the market, and quite a few of the solutions, they actually came from the B2C concept. Like, for example, Headspace or Calm, they I don't know if you're familiar with these companies, but it's kind of like meditation applications. Amazing at what they do, but because they are specifically created to solve specific problems of specific demographics, it's okay when it comes to B2C, because you can target your, you know, like go-to-market campaign to get to these people who it's relevant for. But when it comes to B2B, it's a little bit different, because if we're talking about company with 100+ employees, wellness means different things for different people. Different people have different, you know, like expectations, availability. They speak different languages. Someone doesn't give a crap about meditation and wouldn't try it regardless of whatever you tell them. So in this case, reality of a lot of the services on the market is the fact they have very low adoption rates. I had an interview with Deloitte end of last year, and all of the employees in the UK have access to Headspace as part of the benefits. And I think they have like 30,000+ employees in the UK. Adoption rate is below 5%.
Wow.
And this means the company is paying for everyone. 5% of people actually using this. And I initially thought it was just kind of like one-off, but going to conferences, going to events where I see kind of like, you know, like my competitors, you know, like pitching themselves, and this number 5% comes over and over and over again, and this is considered to be good adoption. And I think it is a good adoption if we're talking about something specific. But if we're talking about like, you know, like efficiency of these solutions for businesses, it's not efficient. And
well, no, because if that was 5% with any other tool in your business tech stack, you would be furious.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And for companies to like address this problem, in reality, they need to have a combination of solutions, you know, like let's say, I don't know, like gym pass for people who actually do want to go to the gym, you know, like people to do meditation, something to cover the topic of, I don't know, like, you know, like menopause. And obviously, like for businesses, it is just gets, you know, like very expensive. That's why some companies have money. Obviously, they do have like options, but most of these companies, they would sign up to the likes of Headspace, and they would just simply claim that, oh, you know, like we have, you know, like amazing, you know, like wellness benefits. And on the paper, it does look like, you know, like you do have access, but individually, you know, like you might not care. So understanding this problem, we came up with a solution, and solution is pretty much give people what they want and when they want it. When we initially started this platform, we started this also as a B2C. So it was supposed to be B2C marketplace for anything wellness related. And we ran this for a year. And as a result, we had about 300+ wellness professionals globally coming to our platform. And these people teach anything from, I don't know, like basic things like yoga, meditation, to kickboxing, Thai massage, and they're all based in different countries, so different time zones. They speak different languages, and the reason why they initially came to our platform is to solve their own problem, as their problem is the fact that it's very difficult for this kind of like, you know, like individuals to get customers online, or like post-COVID, because they were forced to move out of the studios online. And there is a big market online, but for any wellness professional, say like yoga instructor, in order for them to succeed online, they need to understand marketing, they need to have some kind of website, some kind of system to accept these bookings, streaming, whatever. Majority of these people they are not technical. They decided to do this because they're passionate about like teaching, and that's why they were forced online. There are quite a few services that can help them to like list their classes, run the classes, but they still have to find their own customers. And 99% of them don't have customers. So that's why they came to us. We couldn't get investment to get them customers. And that's when I realized that realistically, all these people want is to get this like flow of users who actually would be using the services. And realistically, they would be happy to teach whatever you want them to teach. Obviously, if this meets, like their qualifications and time zones and whatever, as long as they know that someone actually would be consuming this content. So that's what we went to companies with. And there is a research that suggests that the combination of bespoke content that kind of like is created specifically like for you based on your requirements, combined with live interaction, leads to better engagement and loyalty. Obviously, like right now, because we haven't launched this, I can't prove this, but that's kind of, like one of the reasons like for the pilot to prove that this concept where the content is created because someone requested this, not because someone decided that this like yoga class needs to run specifically, like at this time. No. But you individually, let's say you want to do this kickboxing class on like every Friday, 5 a.m. New York time, and you want it to be in Spanish. And there is more likelihood that you will join this class because again, like, like it is actually was creating based on your requirements. And, so that's kind of like, like that's the idea.
You're not trying to make it to something or force yourself to something that isn't quite right for you. I mean, which in of itself can create additional anxiety, right?
Exactly.
That and feeling of like, oh, I should go to that thing and I feel bad for not going, and
And that's because also kind of like as a result of all my, like interviews last year when I was doing this market research, that's when I also realized, again, why a lot of these solutions have such a low adoption rate. Obviously, like running live classes, I mean, it's not a rocket science. There is, like there is nothing new. But what a lot of companies offering, it's like for example, my previous employer, we would have yoga meditation classes, I don't know, like Monday, Wednesday, 1 p.m. London time. And that's why no one was actually, like going there, simply because you might actually want to go, but priorities change. You have a meeting, I don't know, like 1 p.m. London time. In New York, it's not, like it's not 1 p.m. anymore. And that's why like things change all the time, but solutions are not flexible. And that's why there is like, like zero surprise. It's not that this doesn't work. It's just like the way it's structured is not working. And reality with a lot of companies is the fact that regardless of what companies actually say, the main priority is actually generating the revenue. And that's why also like this flexibility is like, it just has to be there. Like I personally think that like the future of corporate wellness is this, like it needs to be bespoke. And otherwise, again, companies will be realizing very quickly that they are, like they're losing money, and they're not getting like anything on return. In return, there is like zero return on their investment. And also, like I was talking to another investor last week, and they have it's Angel Syndicate, and they really liked what I'm doing and the way I'm approaching this. But the guy was like, realistically, I don't think I would be able to introduce it to investors because we did invest in a couple of similar solutions, and they are struggling. And they're struggling with this adoption. And of course, he didn't tell me exactly, like what they are and what they do. But I'm pretty sure it's like, it's something specific. And again, specific does work. But for maybe, I don't know, like B2C, because it's easier to target your marketing, and you can actually get the users who would benefit from this.
Right, not just that, but also, I mean, as we know, the climate is tough right now, and if you're a business and you're going through, as the CFO is going through your list of expenditures as a business, you're going to look at those things that has seemingly the lowest positive impact on the business, right? So if you're saying there's a 5% adoption rate for most of these solutions, well, that's the first to go. Right. I mean, it's a no-brainer. If it's something that clearly is being adopted by many of the employees, you can clearly determine, well, it's having a net positive effect on the business, so therefore it's worth the investment. So it's not rocket science to see why that's so difficult and why these other businesses are probably not failing, but struggling, because they're probably losing business left and right. They're probably losing contracts everywhere because there's not a strong enough lock-in.
Exactly.
So that's no surprise. But what you mentioned there about the need for something flexible and bespoke it makes sense, because that is the direction that a lot of sort of corporate arrangements are going anyway, isn't it? Is a lot more autonomy being given to employees to decide where they're working from, their own working hours, their own working weeks. There's a lot more of that happening. Not everywhere, but generally speaking, we're seeing a lot more of that. And I think, like you said, because it is a lot to do with COVID, there's been a recognition that actually employees tend to be far more productive and happy when they are able to, be trusted to do their work and execute it in a way that suits them. So if they're able to navigate their own lives in that way, that's great. But also the big problem with that is that people tend to overwork. Right, so you need something to offset that and to encourage them to be mindful of their own wellness and things. So if you're doing something and providing them something that's equally as flexible, that can kind of click into that, then I think that's a really nice combination of solutions that you're providing to your corporate environment.
It's also interesting, like when on the point that people tend to overwork. When I was, again, interviewing companies for this market research, that's kind of like company culture. That's pretty much number one reason why companies don't see this kind of like, return on investment when it comes to wellness, because reality is, if you are expected to work 24/7, it doesn't matter what kind of benefits you have access to, you're not going to have time to actually, use this. So it's obviously, this is the problem, and it's like the problem is everywhere, and it kind of like, it needs to be addressed, it needs to be solved. But another interesting thing, I come from experience of working in the corporate environment. So my previous employer was S&P Global, and I was doing sales relationship management for the services that S&P was providing. And I was specifically on the market data side, and I have my experience of interacting with another business when you are a business in the data environment is different to, I think, like a lot of other sectors, for one simple reason. When it comes to data, it's very difficult to stand out, because majority of these companies, they do offer the same stuff. I don't know, Bloomberg, Thomson Reuters, S&P, Crunchbase, kind of like different niches, but it's still talking about the same data. And, a lot of these services are realistically replaceable. I mean, there is obviously a pain with replacing the service, because again, training, whatever. But because of this, I think a lot of the services, they put a lot of effort into actually managing this relationship. That's why with S&P, I had customers who have been working on for years to get them through renewal, onboarding, trainings, and all of this stuff, because the better they know the product, the better they use the product. It's better for you as a business, because there is a bigger chance that you will actually retain the customer. Surprisingly, when it comes to corporate wellness, it's not the case. Majority of the solutions work in the way, and I think because they come from B2C concept, where they just sign you up, and the rest is it's just it's up to you to introduce this to your employees, to whatever, like onboard them and like whatever. I think they might provide something, but everyone I spoke to said there is like zero interaction after. And for me, again, coming from a little bit like a different background, I think it's just a no-brainer that you actually need to have someone who will be working with the same, like HR person, like this like wellness committee on like constantly, I don't know, like either pushing some messages to these people, but not just messages, but I don't know, like understanding what these people want, working together with HR on their corporate wellness strategy. And again, helping them also to understand that without changing the corporate culture, without, I don't know, like, not if you don't do anything about like expectations of people checking like emails on the weekends, accepting calls, like on endless meetings, that this like wouldn't like this like simply just like it's just waste of money. All the companies I spoke to last year, literally everyone said this, if you had this, it would be a huge value add to your service, because not only you can, I don't know, like potentially guide them, but having experience working with, like other companies who are doing the same, you can also, I don't know, like share some, like best practices in terms of like what is working for like, like other companies, how they did, like this and that. And again, I'm just surprised that these companies that are on the market right now not even like offering any kind of like remotely close to this.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because it is something that I talk about a lot actually, is this idea of proactive versus reactive customer success. This idea that I think that what we should be seeing, and what I already see is, and have done for many years, of the most successful tech startups are platforms that go above and beyond by actually making the human element of their business very proactive in getting in touch with users, informing them of new additions, ensuring that they are continually exploring the platforms that they've purchased, and that kind of thing, right? So it's like beyond onboarding. It's not just like, okay, this is how you use it, you're set up, see you later, bye, but actually keeping on delivering that value through that human contact. And one thing that I think, and I don't think I've said this publicly before, but one thing that I think is very important for us to think about in regards to that is the way that we structure our corporate structures, is that they need to change, in fact, in order to accommodate for that. So I think, part of that is the expectation of certain roles, like in human resources or people managers, to actually make them understand that their roles will require them to have a lot more interaction with other companies in that capacity, and to try and absorb as much as possible, and then also be very skilled in then re-communicating that with their team members, right? And that may not just be in human resources or people management, that could be in a lot of different departments, in sales, in marketing, whatever it might be, that in fact the team leaders or managers in those areas will actually need to spend a considerable amount of time every week or every month speaking with their different service providers through their SaaS tech stack, whatever, because they're going to increase that sort of level of proactive output, and to regularly digest it and then create battle cards and kind of go to their teams and share that information in a really progressive, and constructive way. And maybe these businesses will be providing a lot of those resources for them that can just to make their lives even easier, to actually go out and sort of share in their team meetings and things like that. But I think it's a really important point you raised, because of those businesses we've seen for years have always won out, like they have, and we're just seeing it more niched down now, where it's in more sort of specific verticals with especially within SaaS, that's a winning strategy, because you shouldn't just be giving people advice on how to use your platform when they encounter a problem. That's too late. That isn't a good customer experience, and that's an ineffective customer journey from my perspective. If you are in full control of that customer journey by being proactive at every touch point, and you're the one to get in touch, and you're the one to highlight something new that could be used, a new addition, even if it's just to keep them up to date on fixing bugs or whatever, like that is a proactive, positive customer journey and experience. And I think and when it comes to something like this, you've hit the nail on the head, because if it requires it requires continuous engagement, and that can only happen through something like a proactive outreach process, right?
And I think kind of like, obviously, like I'm quite biased in terms of my experience, considering that I only worked in the financial sector. But I think like financial services, especially like in the data space, I mean, they cracked this because obviously like quite a few huge, quite successful companies. And it's just unfortunately for them, every single year it gets like tougher and tougher to retain the customers because products are so easily replaceable. And it literally goes down to this like fine level of relationship. And one of my former customers, they're one of the biggest private equity firms. They have been with, so they canceled our services after I left. But every single year while I was there, when I was managing them, they renewed the contract. Literally, I'm like, because of me. Like, I'm not joking. It's like, because of all the support and like I gave to this procurement person, and every year we would have a discussion about the renewal, and she knows that I need to increase the price. It's that not increase that I have targeted like a relationship manager. I also know that she has some like budget like leeways, and every single year it will be like a very simple conversation. And for her, this like very small thing kind of was important. And while I was there, like they have been like our customers, and I have been paying like $500,000 easily.
And the difference there, I mean, you're essentially talking about very deeply entrenched account management. That you're right, in financial sectors, generally in products where we're talking very large ticket sales, right, or very large invoices. That makes sense because you can employ the people to do those jobs and account management. And it's a bit more tricky with lower touch SaaS when you're generally looking at lower subscription levels to justify having an account manager for every single account and to be proactive and that kind of thing. But I guess what the alternative has been, which I don't say is a bad thing, but it's not the same as what we're talking about, is things like newsletters, right? Where people are saying, oh, well, we're being proactive, we're reaching out. So yeah, it's okay. But I mean, how many people read them? I mean, I get so many. Like you don't, oh, we've just released this, we're now doing that. Have you tried using this? People don't read them as much as you think, apart from your hardcore users. Actually picking up the phone and proactively calling a business of yours and asking how they're doing and like you said, fostering that relationship is like you said, it's worth its weight in gold, because for those big contracts especially, it's what they're built on. But it's so true. I've been in the same position myself in other roles I've had, where I've heard time and time again, or even working to try and take business from other people, and it's just like, no, I'm sorry, but I get on very, very well with my account manager. He's a good friend of mine. I would never leave this company that I'm with. Okay, fair enough. There's, it goes a long way. It works both ways. But yeah, you win some, you lose some.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it's it's an interesting topic. It's one that I feel very passionate about. But I understand it's a difficult thing because, like I said, you are somewhat limited by how much you charge for your product.
I agree. Like in this sense, I completely agree.
Yeah. I mean, how do you envisage that? Sitting with that plan for that sort of very human touch, sitting with your revenue model. Like, have you figured that out? Is that something that you feel like you've got a good handle on?
Yeah, it's like, it's definitely part of my business plan. So pretty much like all the numbers I have in there, they're all well thought through in terms of, like, why do I actually need this, and what these people will do, and how many, let's say, like if you're talking about relationship managers, how many accounts they will handle. And I completely agree with this point that you raised, that I think like SaaS products are, or like, again, depending, but can be limited by by the ticket size. And it makes sense. I think in my case, my approach, even though we are, like SaaS product, my approach to pricing, again, completely different to what everyone else is doing in the industry. And this again goes back to my experience with S&P. And for S&P, this experience was also quite new. So I came to S&P through another, like one of the acquisitions. So they acquired the company from the US. It was called SNL Financial. And they had this business model where access to everything would be unlimited, and pretty much the pricing was kind of driven by consumption. And I think these days companies, like everyone is struggling with this, let's say Netflix, people sharing their login details. And one person is paying, like everyone else is using, and I think they try to do something about this, then they open this up. So because it's kind of like it is really, really difficult. The same was for the data services. And a lot of the companies did struggle and still struggle with the fact that someone is paying and like the access is just being shared. And SNL very early decided to step away from this, and they would unlimit access to a number of users and whatever, and they would literally limit this to pretty much like usage and the value that the companies would be getting out of this. So when S&P was acquired by SNL, then S&P started kind of like employing the same model on all the services. It was so successful that likes of Thomson Reuters, Bloomberg copied this from them. And again, for one, maybe because of the competition, but also because the pricing conversation gets a little bit easier because you're not paying for the users who are not even using your product. You are actually paying kind of for what they do with it. And I think for businesses, in terms of the pricing, is a little bit more transparent and more understandable. And when it comes to service providers, you also have potentially easier discussions when it comes to price increases at renewal if your usage consumption is going up. And so I intend to use the same model pretty much. So when companies would be signing up to my services, they're not going to be any limit in terms of how many people can use, how many people can access it. They're not going to be any limits in terms of how many class webinars they can book. But the initial pricing would be driven by estimated consumption. And the estimated consumption is pretty, relatively easy thing to get. Is pretty much, you need to figure out maybe through surveys, how many people in the company would potentially benefit from would want to use the services. And statistically, Deloitte published this last year. 46% of employees prefer to use digital tools to address their mental health related issues. So let's say 50-50. 50% would prefer to do things in person, 50% would prefer to do things online. But obviously, within the companies, it can be a little bit different. And so 50% the target audience within the company. And when we are doing the survey, also immediately get information about things that they want and when they want it. Let's say type of classes. So before we launch this content already would be available on the platform and for the users. And one of the very simple questions is just how many classes do you think you will attend per week? And per week, I think it's easy. I know 1, 3, 5, because it's not per month or per year. And then you just extrapolate this to 1 year, and it gives you an estimate of how many bookings this company will potentially do. And the pricing is pretty driven by this number. At the same time, when you sign up the customer, the price it's it has a soft ceiling in terms of consumption. So let's say, I don't know, we estimated that your team will consume, I don't know, 1,000 classes per year. And they ended up with 1,200. So idea is that, like within the year there is like no ceiling, but when it comes to renewal, we would actually look at like actual consumption. So I don't know, like we know last year we estimated this and it was this. But I think what it does for businesses, it gives a transparency and also like a lot of flexibility. You have like new employees, like adding or leaving, so it doesn't really affect like the pricing, but also the fact that you're not charged for like overconsumption. Obviously, like from the point of view of like my business, idea is to open the doors to everyone, so they obviously like would end up consuming more than they initially expected, and I have better reasons to increase like the pricing kind of like next year. So that's why, again, no one is doing this. And even when I was with S&P with some new customers, it will struggle to explain this because it's kind of like it's just different.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. For me, like with a sales and marketing background, one thing that's always difficult to have a conversation around or to secure a sale in is when there's ambiguity around the price of something. That can be a turnoff. So how did you tackle that when you were having these discussions with S&P?
That's why all the people who I spoke to, like last year when I was doing this market research, everyone told me that kind of like makes sense. So that's kind of like, it's just different to what other service providers are doing. But with, let's say, again, Headspace, you pay for every single user. Only 5% are actually like using this, rather than with me, 100 people users will get access to the service, but you only pay for 5% who actually like using the service, and that's kind of like that's the difference.
So I guess you can still make some estimates. So you're not leaving people with no idea of price.
Yeah.
Like you said, you can make that speculation of, on average, X amount of people will go once a week, et cetera, et cetera. So you can give them a range to go off of, at least in maybe the early stage of the discussion.
100%.
Yeah, because that's the key, isn't it? If in the early stages people need to go away and speak to their CFOs and get sign off, they need to at least have some idea of where it's going to land. No, that makes sense. That's a really interesting model. I mean, I guess the only worry though would be if someone, let's say you bring them on and they're a team of say 50, but then over the course of the contract with you, they grow to like 100. Like, would you then sort of get in touch and say, hey guys, we just noticed you put another 50 people on, we're going to have to increase this.
Honestly, that's what we did with S&P, because I understand when there is, I don't know, like let's say 10, 20, even 30% in terms of difference between the initial discussion. But for customers who like previously, who would like literally like double in size in 1 year, we would just go and we'll just literally like renegotiate the pricing. And of course, it's not an easy conversation to have, obviously, but that's why you have salespeople and managers to actually do this work, because again, it kind of has transparency behind it. Why specifically we're like doubling the price or whatever.
Yeah. How important? A slightly different subject, but how important would you say it is for? Because I've asked a lot of people this, and I have very strong opinions on it myself. But for yourself, how important do you think it is for a founder to have the skill set of sales as a founder?
I think super important, because I mean, realistically, everything is fucking sales. I mean, like I'm talking to you right now. All I'm doing, I'm just like selling myself and like what I'm working on. I know, like talking to customers, again, like sales, talking to new employees, new hires, like you selling your business. I honestly think it's it is a number one skill. And if you're not if you're not comfortable with like talking to people, maybe you shouldn't actually, you shouldn't do it at all, because realistically, you would just simply struggle. I don't like talking to seriously, everything is bloody sales. I used to hate the whole idea of kind of like working as a salesperson. When SNL approached me 10 years ago, the only reason why I agreed on like doing the sales job, because their approach back then was, and it's like still like mainly is the same, that you only sell the product to people who actually like interested. So there is kind of like, like no hard sell. And that's the only reason why I actually like agreed to try this, because I think when we are talking about sales in general, the main picture that comes to mind is like, like someone like knocking the door, to sell you shit that you don't care about, but they don't stop. I know, like you close the door, they come from the bloody window. Close the window, they don't like somewhere else, and they.
But that is the main picture people have who don't know, who aren't in sales. That is what they think, and in fact, that's really not the case. That's a very small amount of sales in most sort of in my world, at least. Sales it's not the hard sale, it's a consultative sell usually, and it is usually coming in trying to solve people's problems first, more than anything else, and building relationships. That's what it really comes down to, isn't it? Hence everything you said before, about going out there and having the balls to just find that venue, or building the relationship with the customer so that they use and they renew and they use your platform again and again. It's all just relationships. That's all that is. There is something very underrated, I think, underneath all of this as well, which is being likable, right? Which we don't talk about enough. But being likable is hugely underrated. There's a lot of people, especially in the corporate environment, seem to rate, efficiency and being organized and, going at 100 miles an hour and all this kind of thing. And I think, well, actually, yeah, but you also just need to be nice. You need to be likable, because if people don't like you, they're not going to buy anything from you, or you're not going to be able to inspire people or rally a team or hire people or get investment. And I think that's a large part of what sales is.
100%. So since you mentioned on being likable, like I did mention to you that wellness professionals struggle to sell anything online for like many reasons. And obviously, there is a difference between going to a yoga class in person and doing it online, because even though you and I, like interact live, there is still this like element missing of like us talking, like in the pub, whatever, this kind of like personal.
Yeah, because if you go in person to a yoga class, everyone's sitting around before, you're chatting to them. Hey, how's the wife doing? How's this? And you have the opportunity to be social and be likable, and to make a connection beyond just the interaction of the class, right?
And that's why when it comes to life experiences, these wellness professionals, they kind of need to put more effort into this to compensate for the lack of this, like personal connection. And in all fairness, again, majority of them struggle simply because they don't, they just don't know. They don't see the difference. And what I also kind of like came up with, obviously, like, again, I want to make sure that once we launch that, users have a great experience, starting from, like onboarding to actually, like going to the classes and like enjoying and coming back. And I can control quite a bit, but obviously when people do go to this class, it's something that like is outside of my control. I cannot have people like policing every single class in terms of the quality. I don't know, do people say hi or not? So again, knowing that there is the problem, I found a solution in the way that I'm planning to partner up with a few professionals in the industry who are like specializing on different things, which I believe are quite important to deliver good quality, whatever. And all of these people, I kind of like met them through like network, and I just like talking to them, knowing what they do. I was like, bloody hell, this would be so great for instructors. This would be, like as basic things as when you are running like live class, that you shouldn't have a bloody dog sleeping on the,
Well, it's funny you say that, because I was just looking at him because because she was being so adorable as you were talking.
But that's kind of like, again, like talking about like like professionalism and experience, especially when it comes to B2B, when there is a level of expectation. Instructors need to show up like they need to be likable.
Yeah, yeah.
And one of the things, so actually, like I met this person, and she is providing consulting, coaching for the hospitality industry on soft skills.
Mhm.
And as like if you think about it, when you go to like like any hotels, that's, I mean, ideally, and I get that expectation from the management that employees have to be likable.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way potentially for you to bring the customer back into this hotel, because competition is bloody enormous. And it is, as you said, like like likability, like it is like underrated. And that's why when I was talking to her, completely different sector, I was like, bloody hell, once I start running, like I want you to do, I don't know, like webinar, like for instructors on this like soft skills, because in the end of the day, it's all about the experience.
Yeah.
And if your users like come in and they enjoy you, they enjoy the picture, they enjoy the structure, the tone of voice, whatever, there is a like that big likelihood that like they will come back.
Yeah, and that kind of goes to just the success as a whole of for any business owner, whether it's just being approachable, being likable, being relatable. Like there's so much to say about that. Like that's even to some extent what the motivation is behind me doing this series, right? On two levels. So there's the level of for myself. So one way a lot of small business owners, like solo business owners, like instructors or whatever, might get around that they only run online classes, so they need to build a bit of a personality online, is to use content marketing, right? So to release information so that people feel like they know a bit about the person and they understand them. We know the importance of that these days, to build a personal brand, and so that people feel like they know that person, that they connect to that person, they like the person, and then they're more likely to buy from them. And that's some sort of, to a degree, what I'm doing, for my business with this, but also to give that opportunity to the person or people that come on my on this show as well, because of my hope is that anyone watching this, whether they are potential customers of yours or maybe potential investors of yours, see more than just a website or a LinkedIn profile or a 5-minute pitch, but they actually see the person behind the business. And I'm a big believer that just in the same way that your events have probably created you more opportunities because you have social interaction, not just come to our office and do a 10-minute pitch. That it might create more of an opportunity there. It puts a personality behind something. And you speak to any investor and ask them, like, what is the main thing that you look for when it comes to your investment? They always say the same thing: the founder. It's down to the founder, the personality of the founder. Do I believe this person can do it? Can I see myself working with this person long term? Like, so it to me, it's a no-brainer to do something like this, and for others to concentrate on that as a skill that you build. And that is kind of an extension of sales, because there has to be that confidence to go into an unknown interaction and just have a conversation and enjoy it and not come out of it looking too much like an arsehole, which I don't always succeed in, but I try.
I mean, it's all about practice, right? And that's
kind
of like, like talking about, again, like sales or likability. Obviously, like not everyone is born like amazing salesperson or like even likable. And
I think it needs to be a good conversationalist, ideally, but not everyone has that.
And I think also, again, I understand it, like like people are different, and people have also different level of awareness and self-awareness, and that's why this guy who was doing his like 1-minute pitch at my last event and kind of like messed up, and then was kind of, I don't know, like hard, like on himself. I was actually like quite proud of him, because I mean, like, it's, again, like you need to be self-aware to get better in like sales. And I don't know, like even the same like likability. Like I understand there is like psychology in terms of, I don't know, like your face, but it's a lot about you also, like your body language, how you talk, and it comes with practice. Only if you aware that you actually need to work on this, and you need to get better.
Yeah, it's funny. I recorded another one of these earlier today with two co-founders, and we talked at one point about balance and the importance of finding balance in the things that you do. And I think we're entering the similar territory here, just like with everything, in that, yes, it's very important to, and to your point about that guy, like with that attitude, I think you can succeed in whatever you put your mind to, right? As long as you're always looking to improve and take feedback. But then equally, you also need to be very careful of the trap that you can fall into on the other side of that, of being so overcritical and so analytical that in fact you're not making any real meaningful changes. You're just crippling yourself with the anxiety, along with not being good enough, always looking to improve, or trying to approach things from a technical perspective too much too, when we're talking quite often about quite organic things that require really for you to let go a little bit and to maybe not overanalyze. And I think it's just about understanding when that takes place. I watched quite a powerful music video recently that at the end of it has a bit of a monologue from the artist. The guy's name is Ren, for anyone who's interested. Hi, Ren. It's the name of the song. Very powerful song. And I won't go into too much of it. But anyway, the end of this song, he talks about how he in spoken word, he's talking about how he had a lot of struggles throughout his life, and how he began to realize as he got older that that these things that he was struggling against weren't things to keep trying to fight, but actually to treat it more like a dance. And like when you're dancing, you should relax and let the kind of music flow through you, as it were, and let the feeling flow through you. Because up to that point, you fought it enough, you've learned enough that actually it's there, it's within you. There is an instinctive way to deal with this. And now you need to let your muscle memory kind of take over. And you will find it easier, because the more tense you are and the more you're overthinking it, the less well you'll perform, essentially. He didn't say it in that many words. He said it much better than me. But hey, I'm not a musician, so. But I think not yet. Yeah. In another life, I was a musician, actually, but that's a whole other topic. But no, I think there's something important in that, because you can, I've seen also people like I go on Reddit quite a lot and offer help to young budding entrepreneurs who are like, oh, how can I do this? How can I do that? I don't know where to start. What should I read? What should I watch? What podcasts? And there's so much of it that's just, like we said at the beginning, like it's so overwhelming that I think you can end up in this trap of just like, okay, so you're taking notes, so I need to do A, this, B, that. And it's like, okay, yes, there's a lot to learn and there's a lot to plan. But at the same time, if you treat it like it's some sort of exam, you're never going to go into it with that organic, sort of almost, that organic way of dealing with it. Like you can't go into a conversation having it all planned out in a social setting and for it to come off as natural. It won't be. That's why scripted sales calls don't work. And that's why this show, I didn't want to sit here with a list of questions. I think that'd be fucking boring. You know what I mean? Like, it's more interesting to see real organic behavior, like, I don't know. That's just my opinion anyway. I don't know. Would you have preferred if I had a long list of questions?
No.
Okay, good. Me neither.
I mean, to be honest, like it's new experience for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
So that's why I kind of like don't have anything to compare it with. I'm actually having. I was invited to talk about networking specifically with some students or like recent graduates. So it's kind of like it will be like in 2 weeks, and there is like list of questions. So I will see if there isn't like any difference. But it's kind of like I'm enjoying.
Yeah, but I mean, so I've done in other scenarios, I've done like more structured interviews before of people, and I've also been involved in that. And I've also given talks, about different topics and workshops and so on. But even then, you need to make it feel like it's not rigid, right? The best kind of speakers that you see on stage, or the best interviews you see of famous people or whatever, they flow, and there's kind of this almost effortless feeling to it. It is when it comes across as too robotic that we kind of switch off as human beings. We feel like something isn't right, that it feels manufactured. So yeah, I think that it would be an interesting experience for sure. But I think, knowing what I know of you, I think that you will probably take that and make the answer, as long as you don't give one-word answers to the questions, and I'm sure they won't ask them. Yes, that's correct. Next question, please. Do that maybe just to troll them at the beginning and see what happens. But I also imagine the interviewer isn't going to just sit down and go, Hi, Vasily, nice to meet you. So the first question on my list is this, right? You know, because that would be fucking boring.
We'll see. You never know, right?
You never know.
Expect nothing.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, it's it. But to bring it back to the sales thing, I've spoken about that a lot, and I'm very passionate about that one. And it's incredible though how many people think that they because they don't have a sales background, that they can't make it, and also that to some extent it's true. But I guess why I think I'm quite keen to break this down beyond sales is because it's not so much just about sales. It's you don't need to have done sales, I think, to be successful. It's more the elements that sales requires you to have of conversationality, likability, and so on. If you've got that, then basically you're doing sales. Like you said, it's not the guy knocking on your door, it's not the car salesman, it's not that kind of stuff. It's just the ability to not take it personally when you can hear a no, and to keep trying to find the yeses, really, isn't it? Yeah. No, that's interesting. So what's the next stages for obviously you've got the pilots that you're hoping to set up. What else is kind of on the horizon? This is a structured question. It's almost like I wrote this down or something. I didn't. I just came up with it just now because I'm that good.
Okay, I'm not going to question it. It's okay. No, but like right now is to like I'm still talking to investors.
Right.
I'm still hopeful that I will find an investor who would be willing to take a risk on me before I do, like all of this. Simply because I would be able to launch quicker, get someone like quicker. But anyway, like it is what it is, the market, like as it is right now. And it doesn't mean that I will stop talking to investors. But kind of, I decided that I just need to like concentrate on getting this over with. Honestly, like one of the reasons why I'm actually quite excited about this as well, I want to prove to myself that this concept is working, that it's not just my imagination, that it's not just this like research I found, it's not my whatever, like biased understanding, like of the market. I want to prove this to myself that, like it is actually, like what it is. And I think this will also help me to be more confident in terms of, like when I do talk about this. So I don't need to refer to this bloody, like there is like research available on this and this, but I can.
It's less theoretical and it's more
exactly,
practical.
And I can say exactly, like this is what the industry standard is. Like we managed to achieve this in 1 month without any money on this number of people. Just think what I can do if I actually like have any support on this. So that's what. But since it's right now pretty much me, myself, and I have like one developer who is like helping me to fix things when they get broken, but I kind of like don't count him on this part. This will be like handful, like once, especially, like before we launch, once it launch, and obviously like want to make sure that within this month of pilot, I can get as much data as I can, and also can give as much as I can to the users to bring this as close as possible to the level of experience they would be getting kind of like in real life when we actually launch this. Like it is scary. Like I'm not gonna lie, it is scary. Like I think the same when I had to like with this like like market research with interviews. But I'm quite confident that like we'll get there. That I will be on this.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, I'm a huge fan of founders coming to terms with and embracing the bootstrapped process of launching an MVP to market, because I think for all of the benefits that you mentioned, but also just like early on, mistakes happen, and if they happen and it's at your expense, that's one thing. But if it happens at the expense of someone else's money, that's an entirely different thing. And it can be quite crushing and stressful to experience that. So if you can go through those mistakes early on and refine it before you're then going to an investor, and you can say, especially like, we did X, Y, and Z. We've got this level of traction. We've proven our thesis to be correct. And we also made a ton of mistakes and we've learned from them. now with your money, we can accelerate the solution even further. I think that's such a good offering. But it's funny because over the last few years, my advice that I've been giving has changed. So a lot of advice was to early stage founders, looking for pre-seed funding, who were going out for investment before they had launched anything to market. It was concept stage or very early MVP stage, but no users, no traction. And like you said, back then that would probably get investment. So the advice I was giving was very different. It was refining the pitch, just refining the business model, and go-to-market proposals, for the strategy, etc. Now it is a lot more focused on how can we get some early adopters. And in all honesty, like, I don't know if this is maybe useful for you to hear or anyone else listening in the same stage, but for every business that's out there, there are potential customers who are happy to A, and B, get not the full solution yet. Like that's a fact, and it sounds surprising, but there are people out there, businesses or individuals out there, who are happy to pay for something that at least partially fixes that problem, because it's better than not having it fixed at all. And especially if they can be involved in shaping what's to come, and you can bring in that sort of community of early adopters to do that. Like, that's hugely valuable for people. There are those people out there, just need to go and find them.
Question exactly, how to find them. Definitely.
Yeah. So, are you just going to be bringing on board the one?
I think like one, because I just know that I won't be able to manage more.
Yeah.
And then obviously depending on how this goes in terms of my involvement and all other dots that I need to connect, kind of behind the scene. Because for the users, it's just gonna be, answer questions, get the content, go to classes. That's it.
Yeah.
But I need to connect all other things, because realistically, all these 300 instructors, I'm not going to ask all of them to create the content, because I won't be able to manage all 300 of them.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that's why
you're going to need to curate it specifically for the needs at the time.
So that's why we'll see if this goes well, and maybe by the end of the month, there will be less of my involvement. Then potentially I would be able to get I don't know, more, because reality is I obviously it's going to be paid pilot, but it's paid just to cover my expenses with instructors. If this goes well, and if they like it, potentially I can get more money from them, meaning that I can afford to hire someone to actually help me out to do more of this pilots. But who knows? The investor I spoke to yesterday, he is very interested, and I think one of the reasons why he is helping me, because he wants to have more, so he can sell me to kind of other investors, because they're full-on investor, they don't lead, and we kind of it doesn't make sense to go to the next due diligence phase simply because I don't have a lead investor right now. And, even if I have one behind my belt, something that can prove that it is what it is. So that's why this investor is already since yesterday helping me to just do this, simply because they want to potentially get involved as soon as possible.
No, that's good. And it's the same as with customers, right? There are always those people out there who are either have the foresight enough or are just mad enough that they believe in your idea enough and believe in you enough that they're willing to jump on it early and push it forward. It's just, you need that exposure. And that's what I love about what you're doing, is you're making your own opportunities where there are none, with your own events, and then also just relentlessly going to other events, and always putting yourself out there. And I think that's a really important thing, because with investing especially, man, it's draining. It's I think a lot of people don't quite understand the level of intensity that is around the sort of the raising trail, and how when you're also trying to build a product and build a business, and then all of a sudden you've got this thing. It's full time.
Oh, no, definitely. Yeah,
it takes all your time. It's just nuts. So yeah, make sure you do it at the right time. Maybe not while you're also building your product, ideally, because maybe build it first.
You need to build this relationship before you even start any bloody business.
Right, there you go. So even the other way around. Yeah. It's a constant thing.
I wish, so one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about networking these days, because like, I think in life I had so many opportunities. Like, for example, so I came to the UK to study next year. And I got a master's degree in finance in there, and university was organizing like so many events. There were like so many opportunities, and I just disregarded all of this. I was like, I came there to study. I was studying, I know, like hanging out with my friends a little bit, but mainly studying. And then moved to London, was working, like in the financial sector. I would go to conferences, but conferences again is like about like, like sales and, like talking to people. But networking previously, I saw this something that you need to do networking only when you can like get something out of people right now. But unfortunately, when it comes to networking, it's a long game. It's about building this relationship, and that's why I had so many opportunities, and I just, again, maybe didn't understand the value, and didn't have this. Interestingly, I think Evening Standard published this a couple of weeks ago. In London, about 50% of employees got their jobs through connections. So it's kind of like, like official. And not surprising, like literally it's like, like surprising. And it goes the same when it comes to, I don't know, like again, investment, business, looking for a job, whatever.
User acquisition. Like,
exactly.
The power of referrals is massively underrated when it comes to user acquisition. Maybe a little less now, but yeah, no, I 100% agree. Yeah.
And it's like, if you have these relationships, like, and especially this relationship is tested by time, then it's just, I mean, it's not going to get easy, but it gets easier for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It's kind of like, I wish I had realized this, like sooner.
Yeah, I'm the same. I wish I'd realized that sooner too. Like, it's something that I only started really embracing in the last few years of my life and my career, especially doing everything at quite solo and feeling like I can do this. I should do this alone. This is my business. This is my career kind of thing. And yeah, you're right. I wish I'd embraced that sooner. And I think a large part of that is participating in it, right? So actually, trying to give something to help others forces you then into a situation where you are yourself involved. So like, for example, I mean, it must be at least twice a day I'm making an introduction on LinkedIn in a group chat between one connection and another. Like, I'm constantly doing that. When I speak to someone, I go, you should speak to this person about whatever it is, whether it's a job, an investment opportunity, whatever, because I think it's kind of paying it forward.
Oh, definitely, 100%.
Yeah, and what goes around comes around, right? But and you never know when a person might be, and I hate to use this word because it makes it sound like somewhat derogatory, but like when someone might be valuable. And that's not to say that like they're a commodity, because obviously they're not. They're a person, and there's value in that in of itself. But I think it's still important to understand that we all hold value to one another beyond just the relationships we have. And it's good to always keep those going, and beyond just I want something from you, but just interaction and things like that, because you never know what's around the corner.
Well, I completely agree, and I think I kind of like that's what I realized last year as well, that how I saw all this kind of like, again, going back to networking, like wrong pretty much.
Yeah.
And it's funny that so I'm originally from Russia. And I was talking about this with one of my friends. She lives in St. Petersburg, and we were just talking about like networking. And she was like, "But why people go there?" I know, like just talking about how it works in London, because in London it works honestly different to like other countries I've been to. And she went to a few networking events in Russia, in St. Petersburg, and she was like, waste of time, simply because it's all about like immediate gratification. What you can
Right.
get from what I can get from you right now. If there is nothing, why would I waste my time? And
That's so short-sighted.
yeah. But kind of
Yeah.
like I think obviously like there is another layer of culture in Russia and like that goes on top of this. But I see the same things happen here in the UK, mostly with like younger generation. If there
Right.
is like nothing from you right now, then there is kind of like, like, why would I waste my time? And I
Yeah.
think I was there as well. That's why I didn't do any of this, because I didn't need anything. I was like, like, why would I? And
yeah, that comes with maturity too, though, right? Like
exactly.
when you're younger, I mean, unless you can fuck it, or unless you can, like, it'll buy you a drink, then you're not interested. Like,
Exactly.
you know what I mean? Like, and that's fine because you're young, you're moving fast. You've got no time. You just want to go on to the next thing. And I totally get that. But as you mature, you start to just sort of think ahead a little bit more, I think.
Definitely. And the same, like what you said, right, in terms of like paying it forward. And when again, I kind of like had to change my mentality on this. When I go to this, like networking events, I talk to people, and I always, and I'm just like not pretending like it is the case. Like people who can verify this, what I can do for you in terms of like, I don't know, like introductions, like whatever. I was at the this EU summit conference for like startups in Barcelona, 2 days. The number of people I introduced, I'm not joking. I was like, maybe I'm doing a fucking wrong job, because I like to. So I have two amazing skills. I like to ask questions. I don't give a shit if it's stupid or not. It's just, especially if I don't understand something, I would bloody drill. My partner, he would get uncomfortable, like literally, because he would think that I'm like interrogating people. And it's like me being in Russia with being accused of interrogating someone is like not a good thing. And also I have a great facial memory. I don't remember names. I'm like with names, but I do recognize faces. Even though I met these people somewhere a couple of years ago, if I spoke to them, I think my brain connects the picture to the story. That's why I might not remember the details, but I can remember quite a bit. And for me, that's why I think like it's like easy to make these connections, because I would talk to someone, ask them like questions, like, bloody hell, I was talking to this guy before. You like you need to connect. But again, for me, it's also like it took me a while to understand that you need to, I mean, before you need to give before you receive. That's pretty much kind of like, like, what can I do for you? And I think I learned this from another networking event, and it was like membership, like monthly membership, like networking that would happen kind of like every single month. And the person who runs this, like she's amazing. I mean, like she's a great, like networking, like she's a great connector, but she was also, like educating her members that it's about what you can give, because reality is like if everyone will start giving away, obviously like it all comes back. And I noticed this myself, that like the more I do for people, and then they get like, oh, someone introduced me to someone, and then it's like, like it feels fucking nice.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's funny because of you and I are very similar in that, in those things that you described about how you like to interrogate people. Part of one of the reasons why I like to do this, and also faces and versus names. I'm so bad at remembering names. Like meeting Vish at the networking event. Like I was stood next to him when we first walked in the venue, and I was looking at him. I was like, I recognize you from somewhere. Where do I recognize you? And then we put it together that we were first connections on LinkedIn, but never spoke to each other before. But I just recognized his profile photo. And I went, did you used to have a profile photo that was like this? And it was like, yeah, I did. How do you remember that? Like, but and what you were saying about giving, give, like that is pretty much my catchphrase when I talk to the founders my client founders, especially early stage. Like going back to, sorry to tie this back in, but there's a nice synergy here about what you were saying about, your process that you're going through now. You're going to be bootstrapping, this idea of, the customer journey, being proactive. It's all about giving. Like, and that's a very important thing, I think, for early stage businesses to be aware of, is before you can start asking, give me your money and give me your business, you need to over deliver, right? Over deliver on your promise of just giving as much value as possible, going above and beyond what your product does, and really go out of your way to do as much as you can, and ideally keep doing that, right? Because of a lot of companies, they then get that big Series A funding, and a lot of that stops, and that's a problem. But if you can build that into the foundations of your business and your corporate culture that you structure moving forward, I think that's a beautiful thing, because you will be remembered, like you said, in the same way that most people don't remember names, or we don't remember names, they remember faces. They'll remember what they associate with your company name and logo will be that sort of entity, that brand of the company that just over delivers, that just goes above and beyond. And I think that's what builds those relationships with companies, right?
No, definitely.
Well, look, we're coming towards the end, so thank you so much. But I like to end this in a specific way. So, like I said at the beginning, there's only 2 bits of structure that I have.
Well, this part is prepared, right?
This is kind of and it's I may be making it sound a lot better than it is. So at the beginning, there's your introduction, and at the end, there's this thing that I like to do, where I like to, and I've only started doing this recently, where I like to ask, to take it back to a bit of context. I'm hoping that a lot of people watching this might be sort of people who want to just get started, maybe current founders, and maybe potential investors. But it's these first 2 that I'm hoping are going to be watching this and kind of getting some inspiration from the people who I have on here, the founders, and their journeys. So I guess a bit cliche of a question, but I think it's an important one. What sort of words of wisdom would you want to impart, if you could think of anything along your journey? What kind of, not advice or anything, but just anything really that comes to mind that you're thinking, okay, new founders, this is what you need to know?
I think be careful with who you listen, and I think what you said today, sometimes ignorance is a bliss, because very often I meet younger founders who are kind of, I don't know, younger, much younger than I am, right? And a lot of them are quite successful, and a lot of investors see the young age as kind of a negative thing. And I get it, because again, you do go through your life, you mature, you get some life experience. I mean, there are things that you just can't get at 20, literally, you need to live your life. But at the same time, a lot of them succeed, potentially by luck, but this luck, I think, is associated with the fact that they don't overthink. And they don't overthink because they don't know enough. And that's why it doesn't stop them. And something that potentially would be a problem for someone who, let's say, I went through this business once and this didn't work. The same when I mentioned to you this, a glass ceiling for this. You create this and you don't do this again because it didn't happen to you before. Rather than with them, very often they just get over this obstacles without even knowing it was one there, and simply because they don't know. And I mean, it's very difficult balance in terms of knowing enough and not knowing too much. And I think in reality, the more you know, the more you kind of want to know. It's like a bloody Pandora box. So just I don't know. I know it's not really an advice, not really an answer. It's just be careful with information that you consume and the people who you listen, especially when it comes to bad experiences. Just tell them, fuck them. And reality is, we all learn on our own mistakes. I mean, whatever people say, you no one listens to bloody anyone. You go through this, and then my mom was right, my dad was right.
You're preaching to the choir. My career is, I've said this before, my career is basically, when someone asks me what is a commercial advisor, is I get paid to be ignored. That's basically what I do. Very rarely, and it takes time, but occasionally then a trust is built and they go, okay, I've made that mistake several times now, and you keep telling me I shouldn't do it. So I think I might start listening to you now. Like, you know what I mean? But generally speaking, it's people need to make their own mistakes. I think that's good advice. Good advice. But again, it's advice that people shouldn't listen to.
Like everything else I said.
Because you shouldn't listen to advice.
But that's the whole thing. I mean,
the whole thing is contradictory in a way, isn't it? It's like
the whole thing is like every experience is unique.
Yeah.
And that's why whatever worked for me in reality might not work for you.
Exactly.
And someone, like, I don't know, like if I read this or someone told me this, you can't succeed by replicating someone else's journey or like someone else's success. It simply wouldn't work. You need to find your own way, like to succeed and like do something different. That's why in my case I often try to do things like differently, not whatever everyone else is doing, hoping that this would help me to succeed. I mean, like so far it's working, like we'll see how it works in the next like few years. But
and I guess it's also, but to come back to that word again, balance, because there is also certain things that do have to be done very specific ways in order to work, right? You can't say, oh, I don't know, I can't think of an example right now, but there are certain things within anything that there are ways that absolutely need to be done one way. It just won't work or won't be accepted. But I think and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what I take from what you said there at least is that don't look to the Elon Musks of the world or the Bill Gates of the world and think I'm going to be that. Think I'm going to be my version of that. Like your version of success and your path to get there is very different, but they still have a lot of very valuable traits that you can maybe adopt, working frameworks that you can steal from and methodologies that you can learn from, but don't try and emulate that. Take that and make your own recipe,
Exactly. No, that's exactly the point. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like, use this and just, I don't know, do something potentially different with it.
Yeah.
Again, there's no guarantee it will work, but
yeah. On the flip side, though, if you have an idea for a business and everyone you speak to tells you that's a fucking terrible idea, don't waste your time and your money, then you should probably not do it. Because if you spoke to 100 people and they're still telling you it's shit, and then you speak to potential customers and they're still telling you it's shit, don't do it.
Okay. How about Spotify?
How about Spotify?
Oh, but
that was the industry telling them that it would be shit, but the users
and investors.
Right. But the users said they wanted it.
I mean,
so I guess that's
definitely if there is no indication on any side, I think it's shit. Definitely.
But yeah, I guess it's not black and white, is it? There's a lot of gray area, but look, thank you so much. I'll let you go. It's been a really lovely speaking with you. And you know what? I keep doing these things, and I say this at the end. 2 hours flies by. We probably could have talked for another 2 hours. And I'm looking forward to the next event, though. I'm guessing you're going to be sending out the details. For that soon,
I
right?
will. It's just
cool.
It's already on Eventbrite, but just didn't have a chance to actually send this out yet. But
yeah. So exclusive announcement, which will probably be. I'll probably upload this after you've announced it, but never mind. But no, I'll see you there for sure. And if you need help with anything again, I'll be more than happy.
I will definitely get back to you on this. Yeah. Yes, thank you very much.
Cool, awesome. Well, have a lovely day.
Okay, yeah, it was fun. Thank you.
Yeah, you enjoyed it? It wasn't too bad?
Yes, no, it was good.
Okay,
I have another investor call in 20 minutes. So
okay. Well, go and prepare, and good luck with that. I hope it goes well, and hopefully next time we speak, we'll have some good news.
Fingers crossed. Okay,
all right.
Thank you very much.
Take care. See you soon. Bye-bye.